Okay, good morning, everybody. It's very nice to see everybody and to welcome you on behalf of the Philanthropy Asia Summit and the GAEA Awards. My name is Ben Rhodes. I'm here representing the Obama Foundation. For 8 years, I was a Deputy National Security Advisor for President Obama in what seemed like much simpler times. But at the Obama Foundation, we build networks of young leaders from around the world, including here in Singapore, which has been a hub for our work in this region on issues like climate and sustainability and technology, gender participation, youth participation. And our young leaders, like Luis from the World Economic Forum, who I'm just here doing what he tells me to do, they're the kind of people that see a gap and try to fill it. Or to quote my longtime boss, people who look at something and think, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. And so our goal at the Obama Foundation is to connect young leaders across different sectors, public, private, nonprofit, so they can be a resource for each other as they advance through their careers. You know, when we look at an issue like climate, we want people who are going to be ministers, people who are going to be entrepreneurs, people who are technologists, people who are activists, so that they can help each other be better at what they do. So a lot of synergy with what we're going to be talking about here today. We also try to build skills on things like strategic communications and storytelling, something that the Obamas have obviously done pretty well at over the years. Why do we do this work? And I think it's also why we're here for this event. Well, it's no secret that politics is a little messy these days in the world, not here in Singapore, as we recently saw in the election, but we're the dysfunctional country now in the United States. But I think the important point is that we can't sit back and assume that political leaders are going to solve a problem like climate change. We also can't just wait for technology or market forces to do their magic. And I know that there's some people in my country and other parts of the world who kind of want to act like these issues of climate and the environment, sustainability, are no longer front and center. But that ignores both the scale of the very real effects that we're already living with, but also the enormous opportunities that could be unlocked for those who meet this moment. That's going to take everybody stepping up, and that's really the theme of today, within different sectors and across different sectors. It's going to mean the right policies. It's going to mean financing that can bring ideas to scale. It means community action that can motivate people. And it means philanthropy that can fill gaps and forge connections and make the whole of our efforts greater than the sum of its parts. And so all of that demands partnership. And I have to say, as you know, parts of the rest of the world are going through a lot of dysfunction, Asia in particular is taking the lead. This region is at the cutting edge of so much innovation, just as it also faces very unique challenges, particularly around issues of the environment. And we're going to dig into all of this today, how Asia can be a hub and a model for the kind of partnership that we need globally. Now, you're going to hear from a really exciting group of change makers today, and we're going to honor some of them as well. And I believe that hopefully you'll leave this room with a little more hope than you came into it. Now, to begin with, I want to introduce Her Royal Highness Princess Beatrice, who joins us today. In addition to being a member of the British royal family, she's the founder of the Big Change Charitable Trust, the CEO of Buy EQ Limited. She sits on the board of Opus and holds advisory roles at Affinity Technologies, Scale AI, and Liontree Asset Management. She's also the GAEA Global Co-Chair, providing leadership and strategic direction with a focus on climate and AI. She'll be joining us on the panel, but before that, we are lucky enough to hear some remarks. So please join me in welcoming Her Royal Highness Princess Beatrice.
Good morning. What an honor it is to be with you today. Thank you so much for having me. I think a little bit like Ben said, I'm also under in strict instructions of what Luis tells me to do. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be with you this morning. One of the most exciting things that I get to do as a co-chair of this incredible initiative is to think about this moment of collaboration. A few years ago, I had this amazing opportunity to be in New York, and I was learning as much as I could about all these incredible projects. And what kept me up at night was the fact that everything was moving in one direction, but they were so siloed. And no one was really giving me the feeling of working together. And as a young person who was kind of always raised by a very passionate, determined mother who says, okay, what are you going to do about it? I was lucky enough to find the incredible team at GAEA to really work with and harness this concept of collaboration. So it is a huge honor for me to be here today, to hear and learn about everything that's going on, so that we really can harness this idea of what it is to truly work together. When you think about philanthropy as a moment to really change the narrative for the climate, nothing is more exciting than this for me. Because philanthropic capital has the ability to unlock so many possibilities. And I think that when you need to solve a huge agenda like we need to come together to do, it is taking the time to think about this capital. Where can we deploy it? How do we work together? And how do we think about risk in a completely different mindset? This is not about risk. This is about action. And only through our initiatives and coming together in moments like this can we actually really get this done. No single sector will be able to do this alone. And when you think about climate now, I automatically come back to this is also about people, and this is putting people first. This is putting humanity first. We all need to find new ways to come together to find solutions. I stand for this concept of hope and the hope agenda, and I like to sort of frame it as an agenda because we really do have to make it front and center, because people need hope. Our young leaders need hope. Our next generations need hope. I had a baby 3 months ago, and she needs some hope because it's a planet that we believe in, that we have structures that we need to foster, ideas that we need to create. And nothing is more exciting than the possibilities that comes when we invest in our young people in the next generation. But we also need examples, we need storytellers, and we need use cases, which is one of the greatest things that the GAEA Awards is all about. Because we can only have these amazing moments of collaboration if we talk about them and we shout about them from the rooftops. So the GAEA Awards is all about that. Because I don't know about you, but sometimes those silos can feel lonely, they can feel scary, and you can feel like no one's there for you. But wonderfully, because of the GAEA Awards, we can showcase blueprints where we've seen successes, and those successes can lead to other successes, and the positivity and the hope can really come from that. So this is why I believe in GAEA. This is why I believe in this action, and this is why I believe in this moment of collaboration. Storytelling is important. Rooms like this are important. So thank you so much for giving your time today to learn as much as we can. My job as a co-chair of this initiative is to stand here as an actor of collaboration. And I'll do everything in my power to make sure that I'm here with every single one of you in order to shine a light on the action that you're taking and amplify. I love this word that we stand for today. We're giving with our whole hearts. We're giving to sit here for collaboration, but we're also amplifying the amazing work that is taking place, the amazing technologies, the opportunities. We're amplifying those, even being here this morning. So as a co-chair, I act as an amplifier, and along with all these incredible partners that we're here to celebrate. And thank you so much to the partners that are in this room. I can't wait to hear from you so we can all come together to amplify what you're doing as well. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for offering to collaborate and giving and amplifying as well. Thank you.
Okay, well, that's a absolutely perfect setup for our first panel, which is going to be focused on the next generation dialogue. I can't think of a more important topic. then addressing how the next generation of philanthropists and investors and family offices can really drive action through the kind of innovation and partnership that Princess Beatrice just spoke about. We want to talk about the emerging trends, the unique role of Asia as a hub, and how collaboration across different sectors can help the next generation embrace environmental philanthropy as a core part of what they're doing and how they look at the world. So I want to invite Princess Beatrice back up to the stage. She will be one of our panelists. I also want to invite Max Martin. He is Lombard Odier's Global Head of Philanthropy and led the ICRC's Humanitarian Impact Bond. Kathleen Tan, who is the principal of Singapore-based family office Ruma Group and director of its philanthropic arm, the Ruma Foundation. And Ludolf von Schoenig, who is the co-founder of Polonio and previously worked as a venture capitalist at Laser Digital and Nomura, specializing in fintech and impact investing. Please join me in welcoming a really remarkable group of panelists. Well, welcome to you all. Princess Beatrice, I want to begin with you. As we heard, your work kind of encompasses aspects of business, aspects of charity, aspects of public service. So you kind of navigate between these different sectors. As you're thinking about the next generation and the next generation of philanthropy, how do you kind of communicate that this is both, when it comes to things like climate action, it's a moral necessity and a practical necessity and an opportunity. And at a time when people are very interested in things like AI, how do you connect that technology focus, which I know you're also working on, to finding partnerships and solutions on things like climate action?
Thank you so much. So one of the most fascinating things I love about young people and talking to them about their work and their determination is the fact that thinking about the climate, thinking about the world is not a side project. It's a essential project. So when they are looking at what they're investing in, what they're hopeful for, it is always top of mind as well. So I think that one of the things that I'm really excited about, especially with this concept of what AI can do as well, is giving sort of proof to that and giving evidence and giving examples where we can find great partnerships along the way. So one of the things that I'm really focused on right now is making sure that everyone has got the best access to the best data that they could possibly have in this, because we have amazing examples, but so often the data is sort of sitting alongside that. But I think a lot of future leaders really need to see where it's going and how it's sort of furthering down the chain, so that actually they can harness that data, and then they can use it into their businesses. They can use it as evidence and proof points, because we really do need to see that evidence. But we know a lot of young people these days, the climate and what they believe in is at the forefront of their investments, it's the forefront of their philanthropic giving. And so if we can align the data alongside that, that's where technology can play the biggest part and the biggest role to really sort of move the needle and make that difference.
Yeah, and I've been humbled in dealing with AI, and it's a little better than me at harnessing data. But I mean, Kathleen, you definitely work in the kind of space that Princess Beatrice just discussed, as someone who is kind of looking at both running a kind of family wealth and investment as well as philanthropy, right? And how do you think about, as you're looking across those two different sectors, right? A business interest and a philanthropic interest. How do you think about making choices that maximize impact, right? And at the same time, how do you think about Asia in particular as a hub for a place, both to have impact but also to kind of demonstrate models that could be replicated and scaled?
Good morning, everyone, and Your Royal Highness. I mean, that's a great question, and it's interesting taking a step back and looking at two portfolios, both on the impact investing side as well as philanthropy. For us, I mean, when we think about Southeast Asia, we think about it as one region. But really, there are 11 countries with different cultures. You look at Indonesia alone, there are 280 million people. So if you look at a solution that works in one area, it might not necessarily work in another. So I work in the ocean philanthropy space. So if we look at, for example, endangered threatened sharks, in one place it might be a targeted species, whereas in another place it might be bycatch. So the intervention that needs to be deployed can be very different. A lot of this is behavior change. It is working with communities, which means that for us, it also means sometimes focusing on hyperlocal solutions, whether that's in the investment space or within the philanthropy space. So scale is extremely important, but I think it's also important for us to look at the local context, to look for high impact solutions. So 2 years ago, we started a community conservation grant program that looks to engage with local communities to protect their own ecosystems. And that's something we feel very passionate about, both working with local organizations that are locally led, but because not only do they have the local knowledge, but they're also there in terms of transferability of skills, of knowledge on how to bring things forward in terms of sustainability. So I think for us, that's definitely an area that we're passionate about. In terms of Asia, and I'm not sure we'll be touching on this later as well, but I think what we're really seeing that's very exciting is innovative finance coming through. We've been talking about innovative financing mechanisms, and we've been talking about blended finance solutions, and it hasn't been until maybe the last 12 months that we started to see a number of solutions come up. So really excited to see what else comes through from the region.
Well, you know, to build on that, Max, when we think about next generation, you know, you're similarly somebody who is, in the advice that you give to some of the most kind of influential families in the world, you're looking at investment, you're looking at philanthropy. But we're also now about to see this kind of, you know, we are seeing this generational change, like this kind of transfer of enormous amounts of resources across generations to a generation that is very focused on issues like climate and the environment and nature. As that is happening, how do you think about the kind of tools and frameworks that can help that unlock even greater impact, right? I mean, how do you see a next generation that can be equipped not just with resources, but with the right approaches, the right advice to make sure that they're having the kind of impact that they want to?
Thanks, Ben. Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here. Honored. You know, I think at the end of the day, we do know, if you just look at it analytically, there's a wealth transfer of 2.5 trillion alone in Asia, moving forward gradually. We also know that anyone who is next gen, by definition, if you think about, say, IPCC 2100, worst case, you know, could happen, plus 3.3 to 5.7 degrees, it's clear that there is actually an enlightened self-interest in getting this worked out. At the same time, we do know that the gap in climate financing is massive, you know, several trillion. The challenge that I see is the following. Now, sort of from the advisory perspective, I see two types of things we need to get right. On the one hand, I think this is the role of stewards. It is true that not everyone, every generation wants to do the same things, and that's legitimate. You know, if you think back at yourselves when you were like 25, 30, 35, did you want to do exactly what your parents wanted to do? Maybe not. So it's about finding the space for innovation while honoring a family tradition, a national tradition. So brokering that is important. It's sometimes easier when you have people help you do that. Secondly, not every good idea works. I mean, you know, we have this, I don't want to say joke, but I remember a couple of years ago, I had a discussion with someone who says, I want to save the Mediterranean. I said, okay, so how much do you have? I said, well, a couple of million. I said, well, so which beach should we start with, right? So very simplistically, the ability to speak truth to power is very important so that you can actually unlock all these tools, so you maintain the motivation, so next geners can actually get started. Secondly, you set yourself stretch goals, but you remain somehow within the realm of what's feasible, and you allow for advice, for evidence-based action. And I think then you graduate to what Catherine just mentioned, the toolbox. And I think in terms of the toolbox, agreed, you know, we need to think beyond classical philanthropy, you know, the minus 100% return, the grant, to also include impact investing, innovative finance. but we also need to find the right mix here. And again, from an advice point of view, we often see that it's the logic of the pendulum. You know, you either go too much into grants or too much into non-grants. Market-based solutions, if incubated, can help doing a lot of good things, but they can't solve every problem. So my conclusion here would be, it's all about trying to, and actually creating structures that beyond the intention of the moment enable you to identify the right kinds of projects that are high quality, to understand which bucket are we dealing with. Is this a grant-based thing? Is this an impact investment? And what we do know about the philanthropic sector, data from the US, Stanford, transaction cost 22 to 43% if you make a grant. It's a study that came out in 2004, 10 times more expensive than an IPO, not very good. It's labor intensive, it's transaction cost intensive. That means we try to help focus people on really where it's risk capital, where it does things that other mechanisms cannot do, that are cheaper in terms of doing them, in terms of making it happen. And I think if we achieve that, and if we could collectively during this forum challenge ourselves, how do we get to the next level in terms of that kind of thinking? So we can't really close the financing gap, but we can make a big contribution to set in motion factors and resource allocations that will help us do it over time. That would be super powerful.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ludolf, I want to come to you. I, as someone who's now a middle-aged leader, I always think it's important when we're talking about next generation to listen to the next generation. And you are in this space that we've been talking about of investment and philanthropy and trying to find new approaches. When you assess not just what you're doing, but kind of your peers, what kind of new mindsets and new approaches and new tools do you think are emerging from the next generation that is kind of taking the reins in this space? And to build on some of the things that Princess Beatrice was saying, how is technology enter into that? Because often the next generation is kind of more tuned to the direction that something like an AI is going in and how it might be applied to these challenges.
Absolutely. Thank you for the great question, and an honor to be here. Thank you to the GAEA team. This is you touch upon hyper-localization, which is something we also learned. We started Paloneo as a pan-European network for the next generation of leaders in Cambridge in 2021. And so we've been branching it out into different chapters across Europe, and through new partnerships also we consider ourselves a global network. But having learned that, we need to touch into very local, each chapter, each city has its different purpose. So in Cambridge, we aim to find brilliant scientists and then elevate them to the global stage in Davos. And so how each of the different chapters are connected to each other and can elevate each other. And then how can technology play a role in that is something we're actually developing in AI that is connecting people within the network to each other. And so institutions like yours can talk to our AI community manager. Like imagine you had somebody like Lewis or the GAEA team 24/7 at your fingertips, ask them for introductions to the right people, fully AI-based, based on all the knowledge we have. So that's the tool we're developing, and we think that by being hyper-localized, finding the best talents in Cambridge and similar places, and then connecting them to a global digital network, and then again bringing them together in person in high-trust environments like Davos and other places or here. That's what we're developing. I think AI can not just create efficiency, but also connectivity. And and then coupling that with philanthropists like we have in this room with venture capitalists. So I'm not a philanthropist, I'm a venture capitalist, and we really think there's a huge potential for these two sectors to work together and maybe be able to finance breakthrough innovations that we see in Cambridge, people working on curing cancer or developing plastic alternatives. There's amazing potential we see for these sectors to work together and finance these innovations.
Yeah, I want to follow up with a question for really just the panel, whoever wants to take it. Hearing you all talk about this, it reminds me of, I was with President Obama when we finished the negotiation of the Paris Agreement, right? And one of the ideas was that the kind of signal of governments moving in this direction would actually unlock a lot of activity well beyond governments, by markets, by philanthropists, by technologists. governments can kind of try to shove things in a direction, and hopefully you have competent governments doing that, but really a lot of the innovation is going to come outside of governments. One of the things I found since then on issues of climate and the environment, conservation, is whether it's impact investing or philanthropy, people often want to see like a short-term benefit or short-term outcome, or in terms of investment, they want a short-term return, right? And yet, so many of these issues are long-term challenges, like cleaning oceans and obviously reducing emissions. And how do you, whether you're advising or investing yourselves, how do you think about that balance between the natural impulse to want to see a short-term gain versus the fact that there needs to also be these kind of long-term objectives that take time to bear fruit? And if you want to take it, Max, yeah.
I think it's an excellent question, and I'll give you one example to highlight how we try to deal with it. We do know that, say, at the policy level, which is your domain, Ben, of course, there's the 30 by 30 commitment. At the same time, we know that to protect the environment, we need people. So one of the things we were able to seed fund, thanks to one of our clients, was the creation of the Universal Ranger Support Alliance, which is basically creating a framework for the 285,000 rangers around the world to improve their ability to basically add value and their profession. And I think this speaks to this challenge. So how do you do it? On the one hand, medium term, that if we can fully activate that workforce, it's going to be massive. That's a long-term benefit. At the same time, for a donor, it's important to see that something specific happens. The good news is it can be relatively short-term because you go country by country. I mean, you go multiple countries at once. You create labor standards, trainings, and so on. So you develop the ability to actually involve them. They can go see things. So my answer, this is just one example, would be try to find things to make the path intelligible. So let's be committed to a long-term path, something that will add value in the long term, public value. But at the same time, let's think very hard about what's exciting to keep the engagement in the short term. And it's typically seeing things on the ground. It's not just, fortunately or unfortunately, we don't just react to data. We also should react to data, but we need this visceral response. And I think it's our job to make sure it can be triggered.
Mm-hmm. And I also want to ask, the other, this focus on partnership across sectors is obviously fundamental to what we're talking about today and to what needs to happen. It's no secret that we're meeting at a time when, globalization itself is under some question or threat. I find it very heartening to be in a room like this that brings people together from around the world. But again, I put the question to the panel: how do you try to model cross-sector and cross-nationality collaboration at a time when there are all these forces kind of pulling in a different direction?
I think one of the fantastic examples that I've seen is actually taking a bespoke solution as well. So shining a light on those kind of grassroots programs, which is why the GAEA Awards are so fantastic, because they're really fostering that notion of examples. I think, you talk about it so well, you need those, you need to be able to see something, you need to touch it and feel it. And I think that when you've got an opportunity to sort of showcase on a global stage some of these ideas, then it really does bring people along with you. I think even at a time like this where, we're forced to kind of look at ourselves, look at our investments, look at where we want things to go, I think it fosters an even more determined mindset of which projects we should be leaning into and how do we grow them. So I think there's a time to take that personalization, showcase it, nurture it, and sort of really foster that showcase.
Yeah, positive examples, not just kind of concepts, right? I want to ask one more question, and I'll put this to Ludolf and Kathleen, which is, sometimes we get very into the nuts and bolts of these things. I think sometimes it's useful to step back and think about why are we doing these things, right? I mean, you're both people that have lots of different avenues you could pursue. What is it that motivates you, that brings you to to rooms like this today? Like, why do you choose to spend your time and attention on the kinds of issues and kind of collaborations that we're talking about here today? I'll start with you, Laura.
Starting with me, that's a really good question. I should think about that. I think I'm very inspired by people. Learning what drives people. Our mission is to amplify the mission of our members, and so just learning about what people are working on and figuring out how can we connect them to the right other stakeholders that can really sort of accelerate theirs. That is one thing that drives us. And then looking at our core mission was actually to catalyze a new renaissance. And we look at, we're inspired by 16th century Florence, where the actual Renaissance started. And we look at history and we're like, how did the Renaissance actually get started? It was by having the Medici family, the biggest financiers of Europe at that time, being patrons of artists like Michelangelo, scientists like Da Vinci, and the merchants of that time who became world explorers. And so how can we replicate that ecosystem today in the 21st century, a 21st century Renaissance? That's our mission. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Well put. That's a good ambition for all of us, to be part of the 21st century Renaissance. Well, I'll give you the last word.
My father was a humanitarian worker, so growing up, I used to have the opportunity to follow him in the field, and I think it's really made me realize how privileged all of us are and how we have the responsibility to do something. But I think what really gets us going gets me going is when you find a passion that's yours and yours alone as well. And that really lights a fire and makes you want to do more. But then when it comes down to it, it's really the people as well, and being able to put solutions and tools and empowering them to do and protect what they believe in. So I think that inspires me to keep doing the work too.
Well, look, thank you all so much. It's extraordinary what you all were able to cover in a relatively short amount of time. So please join me in thanking Princess Beatrice and all of our panelists for Okay, we are now going to transition to the GAEA Award presentations. So if you didn't get enough inspiration from the end of that panel, you're definitely going to get it now. We've already heard how different individual efforts are necessary to kind of meet the scale of the types of challenges that we're all focused on, whether it's climate, the environment. As I think many of you know, the GAEA Awards are meant to recognize multi-stakeholder collaborations across sectors that drive systems change in climate and nature. And I think we had a good reminder that when you have, from Princess Beatrice, that when you have something that you can hold up that is tangible, that is an approach that works, that is being pursued by innovative, collaborative people, that awards like this can help scale up collaboration. We want to tell stories. There's no more powerful thing that you can do in the world than show people something that works. And we just want to say thanks to some extraordinary people. And so the awards in 2025 are going to recognize collaborations across 5 categories: climate, nature, and resilience science, innovation ecosystem, business action, public-private philanthropic partnership, and intergenerational leadership. Before we get to the awards, we're going to watch a video featuring GAEA's global co-chair, Michelle Yeoh.
Earth, a beacon of life and home to everything precious to us. When I hold my grandson in my arms, I'm struck by a sense of responsibility for the threats that nature faces, from climate change to habitat destruction. Our world is at a critical tipping point, but I'm filled with hope and determination
to save the ozone layer appears to installation.
Our greatest stories remind us that we can overcome almost anything. When we unite as one, we can all be heroes. We must boldly take a new path together, and unless we rapidly increase the pace and scale of this change, we'll fail our planet and future generations. The GAEA Awards, powered by the World Economic Forum, celebrate the groundbreaking collaborations working to fix our planet. Judged by an independent panel of experts, they bring together governments, philanthropists, business and diverse organizations from around the world to mobilize the resources that are so desperately needed to tackle the climate and nature crisis. When the awardees are announced, they will join our community, a community of ambassadors like myself, whose goal is to be a catalyst for change. We will continue to shed light on pioneering partnerships, making a real difference, and will inspire others with the possibility that they can do the same. Become part of the GAEA Awards movement to help celebrate and accelerate the transformative partnerships shaping a better future. And together, write the next chapter in our story with a brighter future for all of us.
Renewable energy installation of solar appears to have worked.
To present the awards, I am very pleased to welcome to the stage Mr. Fred Tsao. He's going to be leading the awards presentation. Fred is, I think, exactly what Max was talking about. He's the fourth generation steward of TPC, formerly known as IMC Pan-Asia Alliance. And Fred, it was really interesting to read about your work and to see about how you're simultaneously carrying on a legacy of your family, but also transforming it by focusing on ways to integrate well-being, to integrate philanthropy into like an even more impactful future. So please join me in welcoming Fred, who will tell you about our extraordinary honorees.
I was given a job to be the global steward, wealth steward for well-being. So let us look at wealth. Wealth is capital of all kinds, resources to achieve our goals. And we have a common challenge in humanity, a challenge of sustainability, of globalization, and tech application for the era. And we have a common wish, all of us wish to be well and happy. And that cannot be achieved just by ourselves, because well-being and happiness of life is a whole life system. And that means we have to care about the whole life system, the universe, both visible and invisible part of the universe, which otherwise we call materialism and spirituality. If we look at well-being as a coherency of the system, we can understand what holism is, because the whole is not separable, and therefore we have to act according to this system theory. So we have this common responsibility to our own life and to all life to solve the sustainability challenge, to make a globalization in the direction of well-being and collaboration, and to apply tech properly. Otherwise, this new tech can be very dangerous to humanity. We need to create this new well-being and happiness economy, as United Nations have advocated. So, we know that we cannot create much. Civilization is a co-creation of all of us. And this sustainability, some would say, is all the poisons or all the pollution we put out there. But we have to ask a question: are we intelligent or stupid? We have to ask what pollution we put in our mind that make us act in such vulnerable, helpless, that we need hope. We just need to change ourselves. Action is hope. No action has no hope. And the only action we can do is co-creation. Through harmonizing relationship, realigning to this mission, because we all need the same mission, collaborate and co-create. The more we get clustered into collaboration and partnership of partnerships, we will change the world. But more important, the question asked: what's my mind state? Because we need to change our mindset, as everybody says. So, change yourself and the world will change around you. Thank you very much. Should I be? Yes. Okay. The winner of the Public-Private Philanthropic Partnership is the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, GEAPP, who is mobilizing over 50 partners to accelerate renewable energy solutions across Asia, Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean, enhancing energy access and reducing emissions. Congratulations, Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet.
We all know that time is running out to inspire global climate action and achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals.
Issues such as poverty facing this planet.
The news is full of reports of wildfires, floods, and drought.
On the brink of starvation.
We are all beginning to feel the effects in our everyday lives, but climate change doesn't affect everyone equally. Across emerging economies, people are more vulnerable to the impacts. But there is reason for hope. Renewable energy can unlock opportunities and allow these communities to thrive. The Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, or GEAP, is a collective movement of more than 50 partners around the world, including philanthropy, the private sector, and government. Together, we are on a mission to expand universal, reliable energy access, reduce carbon emissions, and create jobs. GEAP works with its partners to develop tailored local solutions. It's the entrepreneurial energy of people in the communities where we work that holds the key to better tomorrow. In just 2 years, our alliance's diverse projects have already prevented 147,000 tons of CO2 emissions, connected over 1.3 million homes and businesses to affordable, sustainable power, and supported more than 600,000 jobs. GEAP is so proud to have had our work recognized by the World Economic Forum's GAEA Awards. This award will help us in our aim to expand energy access for 1 billion people by the end of this decade, prevent the release of 4 gigatons of CO2, and enable 150 million jobs. The continuing support of GAEA and the GAEA Awards community will help our alliance forge new partnerships with governments, companies, and organizations, mobilizing further funding to start new projects and reach even more people faster. Together, we can make a real difference by powering a sustainable future for everyone. When we change energy, we change lives. Thank you very much. I'm still recovering from seeing that guy speak in the video. Thank you very much, Fred. Good morning, everybody, and congratulations to my fellow awardees. And also thank the organizers for this incredible event. It's an honor to stand here among so many of you who are driving change. As we know, the world is racing towards a clean energy future, but far too many are still left behind. It's shocking that 700 million people still live without electricity, and billions more have no access to reliable and affordable clean energy. Now let's think about what those numbers mean. These are mothers giving birth without access to life-saving health care. These are students who cannot study after sundown. These are farmers losing crops because they don't have something as simple as cold storage. And these are businesses forced to shut down their doors when the power cuts. It's tragic and it's heartbreaking. It means dreams deferred, opportunities lost forever, and futures dimmed before they can even have a chance to begin. At the same time, climate change is wreaking havoc all of us, all around, especially to the vulnerables. This is a huge problem, and we are running out of time to solve it. But there is good news. Clean technologies are becoming more affordable than ever, and the finance is being used much more innovatively, and most importantly, local communities are involved in creating solutions that matter to them. So why are we not there yet? Why still so many people without access? The problem is that we've all been working in silos. We have been meeting our individual targets and goals and feeling pretty good about it, right? Because we're doing what we're supposed to do. But we have been unable to make that quantum leap collectively, the world so badly needs. What we did not realize is that we are all in the same team, and we all have the same destination. That's why the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet were created in 2021 at COP26. We are a powerful alliance of public-private philanthropic partners working together to deliver transformational solutions where they are needed the most. Together in our alliance has built over 170 projects across 40 countries that are connecting people to energy, creating jobs, and cutting carbon. Here's just one example in remote island community in Indonesia, where the local fishing industry has long struggled with preserving their catch and reducing their food loss because there isn't a cold storage. Individual organizations have been working and doing a good job to address this, but they're doing it alone. Today, our alliance is working alongside communities to solarize fisheries sector and establish community-led cold storage chains. It's about understanding simple gaps and bridging them. Ice, you have it on your table, which you and I can just simply buy in the supermarket or just make it in your own freezer, is a whole different ballgame for these islanders. For them, it's a lifeline. So clean energy is not just about replacing diesel with solar. It's about powering livelihoods, expanding economic opportunities, and building long-term resilience. So if you remember just one thing about our alliance, let this be it. None of this happens alone, and we are not alone. Progress demands bold partnership. It demands alliances that are greater than the sum of their parts, and that's exactly what GAEA and each and every one of you represents. So today I accept this award, not for GAEA alone, but for every partner, every innovator, every leader, and most importantly, for people and communities hoping for a better future and daring to make a difference for the future. And my call to you is very, very simple. Join us, link arms with us. The need is urgent, and the time is now. Together we can change energy and change lives, and let's get this public-private philanthropy partnership going. Thank you very much.
The winner of the business action category is hybrid, hydrogen breakthrough iron-making technology. The team is developing the world's first fossil-free steel production process using renewable hydrogen, aiming to revolutionize the steel industry and drastically cut carbon emission.
Steel is the foundation for our industrial society.
But is a huge emitter of carbon dioxide.
Steelmaking actually accounts for 7% of global emissions.
If we want to achieve our climate target,
The aim of not going to be great for the climate.
we have to substantially change our steel-making process.
Swedish steel alternative.
The Hybrid Initiative is a partnership between 3 different companies with the main objective to reduce the CO2 emission in steel manufacturing. The hybrid technology is where you push hydrogen gas through iron ore, and the gas then reduces the oxygen content in the ore.
We have been able to prove that we can produce a superior product with a proven process to actually do it. And we have also finalized the pilot program in time and on budget.
If we replace the natural gas in direct reduction with pure hydrogen, we almost decrease emission of carbon dioxide to 0.
Today, the hybrid technology is known around the world. It has been proven that it works, and it shows a great partnership with 3 different companies.
I am very honored on behalf of Vattenfall, SSAB and LKAB to receive this GAEA Award. It means a lot, and especially being recognized as the moving force in business.
It shows that it's feasible. And now the next step is actually to show that it's feasible in an industrial scale. This award, of course, puts the light on a way of work that has been quite successful.
In order to develop these new business models, you have to think cross industries and cross the value chain. And therefore, a close collaboration between the 3 of us is what has made this a successful project.
If we transfer to hybrid technology, we can reduce the CO2 emissions from steel manufacturing around the world to 0.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm truly glad and honored to be here today representing the Hybrid Initiative. And as you saw in the movie, it's a collaboration between 3 different companies working in Sweden and developing processes within a value chain from mine to steel. Our goal and ambition is to create fossil-free processes, and by that then reducing the CO2 emissions from the steel production. We have been working very intensely with developing new processes and technologies in the different parts of the value chain. And as you saw, hybrid stands for Hydrogen Breakthrough Iron Making Technology. And what we do is to substitute carbon with hydrogen, and instead of then emitting CO2, we emit water from the process. What we have achieved so far is that we have been working in semi-industrial processes, and we have actually proven that the process can emit almost 0 CO2 emissions from this steel route. We now also see that this technology is ready for implementation, and by that we can replace almost 10% of Sweden's CO2 emissions. During this pilot phase, we have been producing more than 5,000 tons of iron, and this material has then been used to produce steel. And we have been seeing that this quality is equal to the traditional steel qualities. And by this, we're also seeing that we have been producing different prototypes and also proven that it could be actually implemented in industrial size. In this pilot phase, we have also seen that the new product has unique properties that hasn't been seen before for natural gas-based processes. And this unique properties increases the strength of the material and then also reduces the losses in the material handling systems. What we also think is that the technique is now ready for implementation in the industrial scale. And what we are doing is to stepwise implement these new processes within Sweden with the start of 2026. We are thinking that public awareness and support is really important for this, because this transformation to a fossil-free future affects the economics and the environmental implications. We reach out to stakeholders in different parts of this sector, mining, energy, and steel, and to collaborate and to share knowledge around this transformation for a fossil-free future. So, once again, thank you very much for this really nice award, and we are really, really proud. Thank you.
The winner of the Climate, Nature, and Resilience Science category is Decarbonizing Rice, who is pioneer sustainable rice cultivation methods addressing both climate change and food security challenges. Congratulations, Decarbonizing Rice.
Rice, a staple food for half the world's population. Growing it is a labor-intensive process which has changed little in centuries. As the global population grows, demand for rice is expected to rise by 30% by 2050. And the way we grow rice needs to change.
Rice is now expected to drop
on the precipice of crisis.
Yields have stagnated, and global climate change is making the job of rice farmers even more challenging. At the same time, the cultivation of rice contributes 10% of global methane emissions. This greenhouse gas is 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide in warming the planet. With groundbreaking scientific breakthroughs and new partnerships between rice farmers, governments, and private sector, Decarbonizing Rice by Temasek Life Sciences Laboratory is a trailblazing project that is revolutionizing rice production. The results of our pilot trials speak for themselves. By combining climate-resilient rice varieties with customized fertilizers and water management techniques, we have reduced methane emissions and water use by 50%, while increasing the rice yields by 5 to 10%. The potential impact of these solutions is groundbreaking, making rice cultivation more sustainable and securing the livelihoods of millions of farmers, especially in Asia and Southeast Asia. We want to thank the World Economic Forum for awarding us a GAEA Award in recognition of our progress in sustainable agriculture. This award fuels our determination to push boundaries and work even harder towards creating meaningful impact. The support of GAEA and GAEA Awards community will help us take the next step, expanding our trials from pilot to a larger acreage across more countries. And it will help us reach our ultimate goal, reducing methane emissions from rice cultivation, ensuring rice farming not only nourishes the world, but also help protect our planet for future generations. By collaborating with governments, financial institutions, and philanthropic organizations, we aim to empower more rice farmers with these innovations, enhancing their livelihoods while making a critical contribution to the fight against climate change.
Good morning, everyone. It's an incredible honor to be here this morning. As I look at the video, I would like to say two things. Number one, welcome to all of you to Singapore, for those of you who are not resident here. Just to dispel a certain fact, there are no rice fields in Singapore at all. The only rice farmers in Singapore all wear white coat and have PhDs. But that's an incredible reason for us to partner, and that's the only way we can grow. I would like to first of all thank Temasek Trust for believing in us and supporting what we do. Also thank GAEA for this incredible, wonderful recognition. But I also must say that my deep appreciation goes to all the scientists that has come before us, on whose shoulders we now stand, and also for all my colleagues working in the lab, and some of them are here, for believing in the mission of harnessing the power of life sciences to improve life. As you see in the video, rice is the lifeblood for 50% of the world's population. And every bowl of rice we consume, however, carries with it a hidden cost we often do not see. Rice cultivation is contributing to 10% global methane emissions. And that is directly linking to climate change. And at the same time, climate-related disruptions are affecting our ability to grow rice to feed a growing population. At TLL, our decarbonizing rice project started, well, maybe 2 decades ago. I can recall from early days of how we've worked with our colleagues, or we learned to work with our colleagues in Indonesia and China to develop new rice varieties that would be able to thrive and adapt to a harsher growing environment in support for communities affected by the Asian tsunami in 2004. Today, our solution involves making these climate-resilient rice varieties available, at the same time developing targeted irrigation methods, as well as nature-based precision practices to improve soil health. All this while maintaining or increasing yields. What's at the top of our mind, really, is how to integrate science with systems change, engaging farmers from the ground up, and co-developing solutions that fits into the farmer's workflow. It is, as I've been often reminded, not just innovation in the lab, but transformation in the field. In our early trials, we've seen increases in yields, accompanied by drop in methane emissions, as well as the input costs, as well as water use. Currently, we are validating our solution in India and 2 other Southeast Asian countries. This is done in partnership with local institutions and farmer cooperatives. We are now at an exciting inflection point. We see technology and innovation as a very powerful resource enhancer that multiplies every unit of energy, water, land, labor to return higher yields without compromising the environment or our collective future. As we enter into the scaling phase of our project, our goal is to bring 1 million tons of low methane rice to the market in the next few years. I know it says 50,000 tons there. Just to point number 1 of working with scientists is that they tend to under-promise. But where we go and when we hit and how do we hit the 1 million ton really depends on the partnerships that we are able to build and develop over the next few years. To do that, of course, we are seeking partnerships and capital to help us grow farmer adoption, strengthen our supply chains, and most importantly, to develop carbon credit frameworks to reward sustainable practices. We are also looking to collaborate with industry and other institutions, not just in science, but really to bring innovation and systemic change on the ground. At TLL, we believe rice can nourish more than just bodies. It can help fuel a climate-resilient future in Asia. Join us in transforming agriculture, restoring nature, and empowering communities so that there will always be rice for every generation. Thank you.
The winner of the Intergenerational Leadership category is the Youth Climate Justice Fund, who is empowering youth-led climate initiatives worldwide by providing flexible funding and support, amplifying grassroots action for systemic change. Congratulations, Youth Climate Justice Fund.
Half the world's population is under the age of 30. And in parts of the global south, it's even higher. More than 2/3 of Africans are young people. It's often said that they are the last generation which can prevent irreversible climate change. But they are not being given enough opportunity to meet this daunting challenge. Less than 1% of climate philanthropy is granted to young people, and those of color, women, queer, and indigenous communities are particularly underrepresented. To challenge the status quo, we created the Youth Climate Justice Fund to empower young climate justice leaders in their efforts for a sustainable tomorrow. We connect them to other young, pioneering grassroots organizers to help them develop and expand their movements with new skills and training. And we link them with our 22 donor partners, creating a bridge between generations to offer guidance to both young climate leaders and donors on their funding. Funders gain deeper understanding of the power and potential of next generational leadership. These collaborations amplify youth voices and elevate ambitions for justice-focused climate solutions. To date, we have supported 90 youth-led climate initiatives across more than 40 countries and provided them with more than $2 million in funding. We are honored that the World Economic Forum's GAEA Awards have chosen us for their Intergenerational Climate and Leadership Champion Award. This year, we are striving to support more than 100 organizations worldwide, creating spaces for collaboration and co-learning. We will do this in collaboration with the GAEA community, as they help us to spread our message and amplify our growth, supporting young climate leaders in securing an equitable and sustainable future for all.
Always a little tool for these. Thanks to my co-director who did this brilliant video in the lobby of his building. And it's me again, without the mustache this time. We had a diagnosis that young people have always been at the heart of social progress. They are full of energy and full of ideas, and they represent half of the world population and almost 2/3 in this region. Yet, they only receive less than 1% of climate philanthropy, and we wanted to change that. And so we set up the Youth Climate Justice Fund, a collaborative fund bringing together funders from all around the world and young organizations trying to solve issues around social justice, climate, and environment. In the past 2 years, as you've seen in the video, we supported more than 90 organizations in about 50 countries all around the world. In this region, we supported incredible indigenous young people safeguarding their cultures in the Philippines. We supported young Indians mobilizing millions of people in advocating for a healthy environment. And in Malaysia, we supported young leaders advocating for better access to climate knowledge and opportunities in their country. The YCGF is not just a fund. We do not just provide funding. We connect young leaders to an incredible ecosystem of solidarity, knowledge, and connection. And we provide them with capacity development, connecting them to donors and funders who can upscale their work, supporting them with training and coaching opportunities to better their work. While we fundraised an historic $15 million, which is crazy in about 2 years, our goal is much bigger. We want to be part of growing the pie of the amount of funding that is available to young leaders working on climate and the environment to up to $250 million in 2030 through advising, through supporting, and also obviously through groundmaking. We aim to support about 150 young leaders, and not just with little funding, but with multi-year scalable funding over the years, and to grow intergenerational equity across sectors. Thank you so much, the GAEA team and all this community, for supporting and honoring our work. It's an immense honor for us and for all the young leaders that we support globally. And as one of our steering committee members always says, young people are the best renewable energy that we have, and we owe it to them to support them. Thank you so much.
Our last award, the winner of the Innovation Ecosystem category, is Built by Nature, who is advancing construction industries' shift to sustainable timber and bio-based materials, significantly reducing embodied carbon and promoting responsible forestry stewardship. Congratulations, Built by Nature.
Buildings are our natural habitat. They're where we live, learn, play, work, and grow. The built environment is where we spend most of our time and resources, and has a climate impact to match. It accounts for nearly 40% of greenhouse gas emissions, and construction is responsible for half of the natural materials we extract. What's more, over the course of the next 30 years, we are set to double the size of our built environment globally. We cannot continue to build our homes, offices, and cities in the same way. We have to build greener buildings that are truly affordable for people and the planet. Built by Nature is leading the way in changing the construction industry for the better, promoting building with sustainable timber to drastically reduce the impacts we're having on the world. We've got an ambitious goal to make half of all building materials timber or bio-based. We connect industry actors across Europe, from city officials and developers to architects and investors, to create the opportunities for collaboration and knowledge sharing which drive systems change. Through our funding, we enable innovative cross-sector initiatives to overcome challenges and to help amplify the role of bio-based materials in decarbonising construction. If we succeed, we'll reduce emissions from construction by a quarter. That's equivalent to the entire global aviation industry. We're thrilled to have won the World Economic Forum Giving to Amplify Earth Action Award. Having been recognised by such a diverse international community of like-minded pioneers, we're confident that we can accelerate and expand our work and inspire meaningful change. When human development happens in harmony with environmental stewardship, we can create a future which benefits everyone. Built by nature.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm absolutely delighted, as all the other award winners are, to be here to receive this award on behalf of Built by Nature. But I'm especially delighted because at 9:05 I was still on my plane and I didn't think I was going to make it. So it's a great relief, and excuse the casual dress as a result. As you saw on the video, Built by Nature is about trying to transform our built environment. 40% of total global emissions come from our built environment. A lot of it used obviously to cool, to heat, to light our buildings, but increasingly to create the materials that go into our buildings. As I also said on the video, and I really think this is worth pausing and reflecting on just for a second, it's forecast that over the next 35 years we're going to double the footprint of the built environment. We all have these extraordinary statistics, these huge numbers, but when you stop and you think about that, every office, every home, every hospital, every school, every airport, and so on around the world, just imagine that doubling in the next 35 years. And we clearly can't afford to build those buildings in the way that we've been building over the last 100 years. We're spending billions around the world on innovative carbon capture and storage technologies. And yet there's one that already exists, and it quite literally grows on trees. Wood, of course, sequesters carbon as the trees grow. It can be used to substitute for concrete and steel in many, many applications. And furthermore, it actually stores carbon safely in buildings for generations. So it means that we have the opportunity to actually transform our cities into one of the biggest problems, into one of the biggest solutions. On average, a timber building can store around about 1,000 tons of carbon. So imagine if 300 cities built just 20 buildings out of timber, you'd be looking over 6,000 tons of carbon stored, potentially for hundreds of years, if that timber's used in a circular fashion. So we really do have an extraordinary opportunity, and that's what Built by Nature was set up to address. And I want to thank, first and foremost, our donors, Laudas Foundation, IKEA Foundation, and LTPP for having faith in us when they launched Built by Nature just 3 years ago. We have been building networks of industry leaders across Europe, across 6 countries in Europe now, 120 front-runner companies who are committed to come on this journey with us. We are just taking our first steps with colleagues on the ground in East Africa, and we're very keen to expand our work into Asia. We are also building a common language around responsible timber construction, developing the principles for responsible timber construction with governments and the private sector to be launched at COP30 in Belém in Brazil later this year. So my appeal to you is that if you're involved in the building's value chain in any way, please think about the use of timber and bio-based materials and support our mission, and sign up and endorse the principles for responsible timber construction. And if you would like to support our journey, particularly in Asia, we'd love to speak to you. But thank you all very much. I'm very honored on behalf of the small team at Built by Nature, our donors, and with thanks to all of the GAEA Awards team. Thank you very much.
Well, that was definitely inspiring, and I want to thank again all of our awardees. I want to thank Chavleet Frederick Sau. You see why he's the GAEA Global Wealth Steward for Well-Being. That was a dose of inspiration, and now we're going to move to our last panel. This is going to explore how cross-sector partnerships driven by philanthropy and Catalytic capital can scale systems-level solutions. We're going to draw on award-winning examples, and we'll hear ideas for replicating collaborative models across water, oceans, plastic, and agriculture, with a particular focus on Asia's role as a hub for innovation and catalytic capital. For this panel, our moderator is going to be Cheryl Fafaria, the head of social impact and philanthropy for UBS in Southeast Asia. Cheryl's also worked at JP Morgan's Philanthropy Center in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. She's advised institutional asset managers and hedge funds on their cross-asset macro and Asian equity strategies at UBS Investment Bank. And she also has grassroots experience running programs for a social enterprise focused on diversity, inclusion, and social mobility. I have to travel a long way to be able to say those words. But I really am looking forward to this discussion to help kind of close out what has been a pretty extraordinary morning. Please join me in welcoming Cheryl, who will introduce the rest of our panelists.
Thank you, Ben, and welcome everybody. I am really delighted this morning to welcome an extraordinary panel of change makers, each of whom comes from very different perspectives in very different domains, but all united by the use of their cross-sector partnerships, huge, high-impact, multi-stakeholder partnerships that have really brought to life what it means to be part of this room and part of this group of changemakers. So please welcome me, but also please join me in welcoming Aisha Al-Tiki. If you can just join me on the stage here. Aisha leads the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative and brings really bold leadership to address global water scarcity. Nanette Poe, with her expertise in social entrepreneurship, founder of PCX Solutions and PCX Markets, and dedicated to driving a more circular economy and a future where no plastic waste ends up in nature. Please. Mark Dalio, if we can have you on stage, founder of Ocean X, blending exploration, science, and storytelling to turn the tide on ocean conservation. Thank you for joining. And last but not least, Catherine Nelson has been laser focused in technologies that support low emission rice production in Asia and beyond. Please do come and join us as well. So if I could just start with Aisha, if I may, and you should all have some mics over there. In your experience leading the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative, what mechanisms have been the most critical for unlocking that cross-sector, high-impact water tech innovation, really specifically? And also, if you can just share with us how collaboration between philanthropy, the public sector, and business fits into the piloting and scaling of these technologies, especially because they're quite undervalued by the private sector.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. So just to give a bit of a background, the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative is a new organization established by the United Arab Emirates to address global water scarcity. The organization was launched just February last year. So water scarcity is a global challenge that is going to require a coordinated response from all stakeholders, public, private, philanthropic. Now we know this challenge is not approaching, it has already arrived. And we know that because one out of 3 people around the world, so that's 2.4 billion people, live in water-stressed countries. We know that climate change has also intensified the hydrological cycle, so we're seeing more extreme weather conditions, so more floods and droughts. We also know that if we don't address the challenge, that things, because of the global population growing, that it's just going to get worse. And the World Bank has predicted that demand will exceed supply by 40% in 2030. Now, with all that said, we know that water is never just about water. It's also about food security, health security, economic development, and even geopolitical stability. Now, despite the scale and the urgency of water scarcity, we still don't receive the right level of attention and investment to really address that challenge. And this has been historic, especially if we compare it to other threats like climate change. And as a result, we're really not seeing the kind of coordinated action that's going to be required to address this challenge. And that's why we're really focusing on raising awareness, on elevating the importance of water scarcity on the global agenda, so that we can convert that awareness to really targeted action. We know that we're going to need the public sector to really drive policy, accountability and scale. We're going to need the private sector to really drive innovation, infrastructure and speed. But we also need the philanthropic sector to really help channel that collaborative capital to reaching the last mile. So only with those three stakeholders really aligning and forging the right partnership will we be able to unlock the potential of really accelerating technological innovation. Now, innovation is at the heart of the work that we do at the Mohammed bin Zayed Water Initiative. We focus on accelerating innovation using various kind of creative approaches, but also with various partners from both the public, private, and philanthropic sectors to really accelerate the process of providing the world with future-proof solutions that can be tested and commercially deployed. The encouraging news is that we do have great solutions that are available today, and there is exciting innovation in the water space. We know that atmospheric water harvesting, for example, is extracting water from air in some of the most driest regions in the world. We know that AI-powered leak detection is also helping cities reduce their losses by 40%. And the innovation around biodegradable hydrogels that are made out of food waste that is helping capture and release water in arid soil. However, these innovations still remain limited in terms of their impact unless we can forge the right partnerships. So as an organization, we believe that we can help move the needle on addressing water scarcity by ensuring that we have the creative models and incentives that can drive collaboration. One of the examples is the launch of our partnership with the X Prize Foundation in launching X Prize Water Scarcity, which is humanity's largest ever prize. It is an investment of $150 million with a prize purse of $119 million. The competition is a 5-year competition. We've just completed our first year, and the competition is designed around breaking the economic barrier of desalination to make this technology more accessible to low and middle income countries around the world. And more recently, we also launched a new competition. We're calling it Al Miyah Challenge, which will be a series of technological challenges around addressing water scarcity. Our first one is focused on water for agriculture. It's an 8 million dirham prize purse, which focuses on how can we reduce the consumption of water in agriculture while maintaining or improving the crop yield. So at a first glance, when you think of competitions, usually they appear quite straightforward. You have a prize, you have guidelines, you have deadlines, but the true value really lies in their ability to catalyze innovation and scale. Unlike other funding mechanisms, when you have a well-designed challenge, it can really encourage participation from across all disciplinaries. Sometimes the solutions don't always come from the same sector. So we know that when you create the right challenges and competitions, you really can mobilize capital beyond the prize purse. There's a statistics that says for every $1 of prize purse, you generate $19 of R&D. So you can really see the multiplier effect of competitions and challenges. We believe that competitions aren't just designed to reward incremental improvements, but they're really designed to drive challenges and bring in global thinkers, builders, and doers to really engage with urgency and ambition. Thank you so much.
Urgency, ambition, and I love your reference to philanthropy as collaborative capital. So Nanette, really very much at the forefront of innovation and driving market-based solutions to reduce plastic waste with PCX. How have you been aligning these business incentives with environmental outcomes? And also, you know, sort of how have you seen this beautiful, precious philanthropy de-risk and scale some of the innovations that you're driving?
Yeah, thank you, Cheryl. So I think I sit in a unique position. I operate out of the Philippines, and our movement for plastic responsibility started years ago when we were still a compliance market. And I am fortunate enough to wear several hats in the community. I sit on the board of WWF. You know, I have a food business, you know, a water business. I also work with the government on a number of projects. And so when we looked at the plastic problem, I was able to see it from several stakeholders' point of view. And I realized that if we wanted to move in this space, there were a number of challenges we needed to solve for. So, you know, businesses who are acting voluntarily, you know, this is a new cost of doing business kind of for them. They wanted to make sure that the money they spent was actually going to some impact, right? They were very concerned about greenwashing. The government didn't know quite how to tackle all of this. The environmentalists were very concerned about any claims that were being made. So what we did in the beginning is we created the very first standard in the world for plastic offsetting. And we said, how do we install some integrity in this process so that businesses are, feel comfortable backing any initiatives around plastic cleanup? How would the government look at this? How would environmentalists look at this? And so we had a multi-stakeholder approach from the very beginning, such that when we created, and this goes to the philanthropy, right? This isn't necessarily something that folks are going to back right away. So philanthropy, allows us to deploy capital quickly in high-risk, often situations to try and deliver proof of concept. And so we were able to do that well in the Philippines, such that the government then came in and decided to create legislation to make this a compliance market. So everybody in the country who was over a certain threshold of revenue would then need to be plastic responsible. And so they brought us in, since we have so much experience in this space, and they said, how do we make this, to your point, how do we bring the private sector in on this market-based solution to deliver on the goals of the country? Because to your point, these issues become national security issues, livelihood, food security, human health. And so we brought in the different stakeholders into the crafting of the legislation. We met with them early, we met with them often to make sure that we were getting buy-in, so that when this eventually became law, not only was it achievable because it was data-driven, but also that the private sector believed in what we were doing. Now, as you all know, and any of you who are involved in the UN Treaty for Plastic Pollution knows there's a lot of very passionate sides to this conversation. What we said in the Philippines is, it doesn't need to be perfect on day one, but let's start and improve. And that was a really important part of just getting it started. And so today, we were able to prove that philanthropists can come in, be very creative about the way they go about solving a problem, and making sure it is robust and scalable, so that, in our case, government came in, created a law, and now we're in our second year of compliance for extended producer responsibility.
Congratulations, that really is incredible news. And since we met last year, I didn't know that, so really huge congratulations. Now, Mark, firstly, I've got to say that Ocean X, I'm sure many of you agree, is by far the coolest boat I have. Can I call it a boat? It's a ship or a vessel, possibly. And the documentary Ocean Explorer as well, huge thumbs up, particularly from my kids who watch it every Sunday morning. If anyone hasn't seen it, please do. It really is worth it. But back to really the issue here, you are bringing together education, exploration, science, media. It's an incredibly powerful blend of all of those things to inspire action for ocean health. But in your experience, what have been the key ingredients to these partnerships, especially the ones that you've been instrumental in creating with philanthropy, with private capital? What's been the most effective way to turn all of that interest, energy, inspiration into real investment, into real systems change?
Yeah, well, thank you for all the kind words. And I think the key in terms of partnerships and collaborations is cross-border between public and private, but also the ocean marine life does not know borders. We can put all the borders that we want up around that, but the ocean should have no borders in the collaborations between countries and the private sector. Even just last year, we did a mission in Pahang, the state of Malaysian Pahang, in which we actually brought in NYU Abu Dhabi to come in as a scientific partner to conduct research with universities in Malaysia in collaborations with the Royal Family initiative in Pahang called Engong that does a lot of conservation work. So bringing in these scientists in collaboration from NYU Abu Dhabi in collaborations with the universities in Malaysia, they've deployed this technology called Reef Cloud and trained up the scientists in Malaysia on how to deploy new innovative technologies that can speed up their process of being able to understand the health of their reefs, and then also what type of reef species there are in specifically Tioman Island. But through that also, we discovered 4 new deep sea reefs that allowed them to understand the health of their waters and kind of what the vital reef systems play within Pahang. But not only that, we actually also collaborated and did work in Indonesia with the Indonesian government. It took 2 years to put this program together, where we spent 4 months working in Indonesia, and we actually partnered with a number of organizations in Singapore and Southeast Asia for that. One being Fred Xiao and all the work that the amazing work they do around the oceans, and wanting to really put a lot of dedication to understanding and protecting the waters in Asia around that. And I think that the key also around this is not only the private sector, or not only the public sector, but also philanthropy, and how it can play a key role in galvanizing the kind of the stewards of the world across this. So the work that PAA is doing is really admiring and inspiring in regards to galvanizing the public and the folks that are so crucial in being able to make these connections happen. And I think that the role that we play in regards to this, or we want to play, is a connection between the East and the West, and being able to bring folks together from the US and Europe to understand what is going on in Asia, because I think Asia is such a key moment right now in being able to understand the health of the future state of their waters, because I think it is the most affected by climate, or one of the most affected by climate change, has one of the most biodiverse waters in the world, yet is still very much unexplored. And I think that in today's environment, being able to bring people together and being able to collaborate is key. And I think the world is becoming such a global kind of force, especially around the oceans, that anything that's happening here is being impacted and seen in other parts of the world. And now being able to be a convener and being able to bring folks together around such important areas and such important regions as Asia.
Thank you. And speaking of collaboration and convening and connecting, what better way to do this than over food? So turning to Catherine here, Rice is a really funny thing. I find it mind-boggling that 50% of the world's population really rely on it as a stable crop, and it is delicious, let's admit. But at the same time, it is one of the worst contributors for carbon emissions from all other kind of foods. And we saw on the slide earlier, 10% of methane emissions come from rice. So, you've really been sort of working on collaborative models between philanthropy, agribusiness, research. We haven't talked a lot about research yet. How are you finding that these models collaboratively are accelerating the transition to more sustainable rice systems, rice production, distribution systems, and also, of course, always bearing in mind the sustainability for livelihoods, for real local populations who are very vulnerable? Please.
Thank you very much, Cheryl, and it's an honor to be here. As Peter mentioned earlier with the Temasak Life Sciences Laboratory, that rice does produce a lot of methane emissions, but it also creates an opportunity as one of the most influential agricultural crops to be able to reduce emissions. So that's why there is such a strong focus on it, particularly in Asia, where the majority of rice is grown. It's also a crop that has very high water demands, so it's really interesting also to hear about the work that's being done to save water and reduce water. So that's something that is really at the heart of all of this. It's not rice itself that's the culprit for producing emissions, but it's the way that it's produced. And so there are some technologies and practices that can be done so that it can reduce emissions by about 50% and also saves around 40% of the water that's used. So this is crucial, particularly around climate change and when we're seeing a lot of changes in weather and availability of water. What's really important is also not to place blame, not to place blame on the farmers, but rather to see this as an opportunity for being able to create wealth and opportunities to rural communities, as a lot of the finance right now sits more at the corporate level, and so being able to channel finance into rural communities is incredibly important. And this is done through these kind of partnerships with philanthropy, agribusiness, and research. The philanthropic side of it is really important because we need it for de-risking innovations. Particularly, it's difficult to see a lot of investment where people are looking for high returns on investment in an area where it's just starting, it's novel, or there hasn't been a lot of investment up to date there. So to be able to fund early stage pilots is really, really important through philanthropic financing. And then also in terms of agribusiness, we have to think about farmers. Every single one of them is their own agribusiness. I mean, they are entrepreneurs and business owners. And so being able to really adapt the local context and work with them in the co-creation of the solutions is really important. Agribusinesses at the heart of it are also the ones that are able to, catalyze the investment to scale, as well as to provide market access. So we're doing some work with World Economic Forum on the First Movers Coalition for Food, which is around creating markets and voluntary purchase commitments and standards for companies around purchasing low-emission rice. And then research is really, also where the International Rice Research Institute's been doing research on emissions and water-saving technologies for over 25 years. And we can really bring the evidence base and the scientific backing to create the standards so that when you're comparing emission reduction across different areas, that that you're comparing the same thing. And so thanks very much. Really appreciate being here.
Thank you so much. And I think we have time for just one final question, if I may. It's really to all of you. But all of you have, really significant, magnificent experience in balancing so many different, quite often competing needs between your missions, between the markets. Quite often you'll work with government. What advice would you give to all of us here in the room to build some of these high-impact, cross-sector, multi-stakeholder partnerships that you've seen that have borne the most fruit?
Thank you, Cheryl. I think we understand that the needs of every sector or every stakeholder is quite different, and their threshold for risks is different, their mandates are different, their timelines are different. I think allowing every stakeholder to do what it does best and just making sure that they can work together. So if we can allow the businesses and the private sector and the entrepreneurs, if we can give them the platforms, the funding, and the visibility to accelerate their innovation, and then allow the public sector to be able to address its policy or deliver on its policy by adopting these technologies. I think merging those two together and ensuring that there's collaboration, but really allowing every sector to do what it does best.
Thank you. Nanette.
Yeah, thank you. Completely agree, by the way. I think what I would add is it's super important to get clear on what impact you expect and how that can be verified, because I'm finding that keeping the integrity in the projects and the impact high increases the discipline in projects and provides a robustness that increases the likelihood this is going to be adopted at scale. So if there's any way that, whether it's from company or philanthropy, if you can get clear about your impact, find a way to get it verified, right? So we're all about standards. I think that really goes a long way in helping this become sustainable, which will then drive the impact you want to see long term.
Yes, could not agree more with both of you. Mark?
Yeah, I would say that the oceans needs the brightest and the minds from any sector that is applicable to it. I think a lot of folks think that I have to be a marine biologist to get involved, but that is absolutely not the case. Whether you're coming from data science, business operations, marketing, media, or science itself, there is a way to apply that knowledge and apply those findings and the skill sets in order to drive change and systematic change within the oceans. And I think that it is the carbon sink of the planet, and yet it doesn't get the most attention that it should, I would believe, at least for this. And so whether you're coming from the business sector, the data sector, or the nonprofit sector, there are ways and systematic changes that you can have a personal impact on.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things is around long-term commitment and partnerships, as well as there's a real need for patient capital, particularly in farming and in agriculture, because these kinds of things don't happen quickly. There also tend to be the last things that change. First it's sort of businesses, and then health is driving, education is driving a lot of change. But farming and change at the farm level tends to be relatively slow, both in policy and on the ground. So patient capital is really important, as well as long-term commitments, and also valuing farmers and their commitment to being able to be stewards of the land. So they're not just producing food, but they're also conserving biodiversity, and air pollution can be driven through burning residues, and so they're able to control a lot of things that affect public goods that all of us are impacted by. And so being able to create value for that through standards, and then being able to verify when sustainable practices have been done, and actually reward the farmers who are the stewards of those public goods is really important.
Thank you so much to all of you for sharing your insights, your experience, your advice with us this morning. Really appreciate it, and maybe a round of applause, if I may, for all of our panelists. Thank you.
Oh, great, thanks. All right, I want to thank our panelists. I also want to thank these guys who've been able to change this stage relatively quickly a few times. We now have a closing speaker that we're going to hear from to wrap up a very full and extraordinary morning. I was introduced to Mildred Tan as she's the boss. and I can already sense that that's true. But Mildred, after being a managing director at Ernst & Young, now she is the chair of the Board of Trustees for the Singapore University of Social Science and the chair of the Singapore Totalisator Board. She also sits on a few other boards, including OceanX Education and Philanthropy Asia Alliance, and she sits on the Council of Presidential Advisors. So Mildred is the perfect person to put an exclamation point on all the things that we've talked about this morning. Mildred, welcome to the stage.
The boss code came from Louis, but in reality, I actually work for him. Indeed, Her Royal Highness, Princess Beatrice, esteemed speakers, colleagues from WEF and GAEA, and PAA partners and collaborators. I also want to acknowledge two persons in the room. I would call him, if you look at the title, it says GAEA Awards, Philanthropy Asia Summit. So I like to call the father of Philanthropy Asia, who is the CEO of Temasek Trust. Desmond is in the room, and the mother of GAEA Awards is Kim Hui, who's also in the room. They have both taken a back seat, and so you now really know who's the boss. So ladies and gentlemen, really what a wonderful morning it has been. And many thanks to our esteemed panelists, and congratulations to all our GAEA winners. Let me just share with you a little story here, because in 2022-23, when I was invited to co-chair the Global Future Council on Philanthropy and Nature and Climate, we were looking at public, private, people, and the philanthropic sector. And we began thinking about what it is to collaborate with one another. Of course, when we went to the GFC, everybody thought that because we are philanthropies, we had blue oceans, we had blue energy, clean water, all come to us thinking we had the money. But actually, we didn't. We were really the matchmakers of bringing together people, alliances, together into a room to actually work with one another. And after we finished that work, the mother of GAEA and Louis and his team, like Yvonne, all came together. We need to amplify this. And what do? Well, we say amplify. What is it? So we needed to create something different. So we created the GAEA Awards. I'm sitting there and I'm marveling at what has taken place, you know, in the last 3 years of work that they have put in. And really, I remember they told us, our GFC said, we have 120 global applications for the GAEA Awards. And I went, 120? We have to go to 120 applications, and we had to study it, right? So, but thankfully, someone else did the studying, and we were given 15 applications. From the 15 came the illustrious 5. So I want to congratulate each and all the 5 winners for the extraordinary work that they do. Today, we're living in a time of profound transformation. Princess Beatrice, as well as Michelle Yeoh, called it the Hope Agenda. The world order we knew has shifted, fractured by crisis, reshaped by technology, tested by global challenges that transcend borders. The once predictable systems of power, influence, stability has given way to a new world order, a complex reality. So in this fragmented world, we need the call for transformative change that's even more urgent. The need to come together, to work together, to form partnerships and alliances are more prevalent and critical. We cannot address today's global problems with yesterday's solutions, from climate change to inequality, from public health to digital divides. The magnitude of our challenges demand bold, systemic approaches. It's not enough to fund programs. We must fund future, innovative, inclusive, long-term thinking. This is where catalytic funding comes in. This is where innovative funding comes in. So the new GFC that we now chair is called Innovative Finance. And it has more clarity because it talks about investment with a purpose, strategic, risk-tolerant, and forward-thinking. The catalytic philanthropy seeks to unlock potential, bridge gaps, ignite change at a scale, moving the needle, not just filling the gaps. In our current landscape, the role of philanthropists is more critical. We see the next-gen leaders stepping up, and we look forward for them becoming partners, conveners, risk-takers, and shape-makers. The governments may falter, our markets and businesses may fall, but philanthropy can step in, not to replace them, but to catalyze them, everyone, into action. We must be bold enough to transform, courageous enough to change, not just as a funder, but to be catalytic in our funding to the unproven, brave enough to support the marginalized, wise enough to collaborate beyond silos. Together we can reimagine what's possible, architect a better future for our children and our children's children, and for many. The time is now. Let us not be daunted by the complexity of the world, but inspired by the opportunity to change it. On this note, I wish you a very delightful afternoon and the rest of the event. Thank you.
We're going to wrap up now. I just want to say that you sit in a room like this and you hear from such a diverse range of perspectives from people doing such extraordinary work from all over the world, and you're reminded that for all those challenges, we have the ideas, we have the resources, we have enormous energy, including from a younger generation. We've been lucky enough to work with over 1,000 young leaders through the Obama Foundation. People are ready to solve these problems. And if we can just kind of tear down those walls between these different silos, if we can forge collaboration, if we can be guided not by all the things that stand in the way of getting things done, but by the potential of the kind of approaches we saw in the GAEA Awards, I definitely leave here with more hope than I came in, and I hope you do too. We're going to now invite all the speakers from this morning to come up on stage for a photo before we wrap up. So if you were a speaker or panelist, please join us. I want to thank Princess Beatrice and everybody who made this such a memorable morning, and let's all come up on stage. Hey, yeah, good to see you. Yeah. Where are you based?